Hey, it's a Latino Newsletter podcast. I'm your host, Julio Ricardo Varela. It's a show about us all the time. And this is season 2. That's right. We're back with new episodes. This is the first episode of season 2. Thanks to your generous support, we're back at it. And let's just dive right into it because I'm so excited about this guest that we're bringing on. But I'm going to read their bio. And this is the part this is the part where you're going to see me read if you're watching it on video. But obviously, if this is the audio format, you're not seeing me reading. But because I like to read the bios, I don't have them memorized because I'm old. Anyway, this is our guest, Bobbito García, a.k.a. Kool Bob Love. He's a DJ, producer, author, filmmaker, radio, TV, podcast host, ball player, trainer, announcer, sneaker designer, entrepreneur, and an educator. You want to read the whole bio, go to koolboblove.com. He's also the author of Bobbito's Book of B-Ball Bong Bong. You see? Bobbito's Book of B-Ball Bong Bong. His new memoir is available from Edge of Sports, an imprint of Akashic Books. Bobbito, welcome to the Latino Newsletter podcast.
Oh man, it's an honor. You kidding me? I've been waiting months for this. Months.
So, because, we're doing this audio only, but then this is for our video fans, there it is. There's a book. I'm going to tell you straight up. I get a lot of books. I took this one to my family vacation in Maine.
Oh.
And I devoured it on a beach like in 3 days.
Really?
And yeah, it was like, and you know me, it's like, you're like me. It's like, you're an artist. I have so many like earmarks and notes. So I'm literally going to go through the book and ask you questions because I have them in the book. So
all good.
It's very special, but
all good.
Just tell me very at the top, like why this memoir now?
Yeah.
Because you've been doing this for a while, but like,
Sure.
Why now?
Yeah. There's never not a time for us to tell our stories. And it wasn't tethered to any anniversaries. I am turning 60 in 2026. The book wasn't released next year. It was released this year just because it felt like it was the right. I'm a rhythm dude, just like I play ball and I'm on a fast break. People don't have to tell me where to go. It's just rhythm. And, I juggle a lot of creative projects simultaneously on a global level, year in, year out. And I had this very small window to write this book and I wrote it in 7 months. And then, boom, pow is out now. And I'm very pleased with the marketing, the promotion, the press, the reception from the readers. And I really feel like there's just a wealth of potential for it to reach a really wide audience. Of course I want to hammer my basketball community first and foremost, because that's a common thread, but anyone into social justice, New York history, the history of Puerto Rico. There's so many entry points, family, cultural identity. There's it's a memoir that sort of is almost disguised as a basketball book, but it's really not, right? So yeah, I'm proud of it. I'm very proud of it.
You should be. It's a work of art,
Thank you.
And before we talk about, my impressions, finishing a book, creating things. That's your life, right? Create, right? You've always done it. And
constantly,
constantly, like, it was just cool to see you like capture this. And, for me, because I left for school up here in Boston in 86. And I wouldn't say I forgot about like growing up in the Bronx, but when I started reading like the 70s and the 80s, like you brought me back. And I just want to thank you for that. And You want to talk a little bit about that time? And I don't want to sound nostalgic because, you know, like you get into like, we get old, like I'm only a couple of years behind you and you're like, oh yeah, it was a better time. I mean, it was just growing up in the city,
Yeah.
but how much did that time really shape you? Those years?
I mean, it's a bedrock. You know, every single ingredient of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I carry with me to, you know, this day and age, even though my life has taken wonderful pivots where I don't necessarily return to some of the negative aspects of that era, but all the positive ones, they're right here on my shoulder and I'm dragging them and pulling them forward. You know, there's something to be said about nostalgia because it is that. And I'm constantly telling people in every interview or personal interaction, like I'm grateful that I was born in the 60s. You know, I got to see the burgeoning culture of hip hop. I got to see the nascent, you know, upstart of what we consider sneaker culture now. You know, I got to witness basketball and its brilliance before the rest of the world really knew what was going on in our parks. And so I owe everything to that. And I think, you know, that's one of the reasons why I point the documentarian historian eyeball in that direction, because I want others to know about it as well. My first book was Where'd You Get Those? New York City Sneaker Culture, 1960 to 1987, released 22 years ago. And, you know, I picked that time period and I ended it at 87 because to me, that's like the dark period, least documented, unknown. And that's to me, like, I don't need to write a book about sneakers that everybody knows about. I want to write about, and that's, I mean, when it comes to my memoir, Bobbito's book of B-Ball Bong Bong, I write about people and playgrounds and events and tournaments that not most people know about. Even if you're a diehard like basketball fan, you're like, wait, Gorky Ortiz, you know, but I want that so that all these important people in my life that deserve to be lionized in basketball history, like they get their proper due. And so my book is like triple threat. You know, it's my memoir. It's also a basketball history in New York and Puerto Rico and then globally. And then it's also an art book because you mentioned it's beautiful. It features my 35 millimeter photography for the last 30 years. Yeah, that's my photo. So
yeah, there's so, I mean, that there was a part at the end of it because like, I mean, I'm going to show some of it because, you know,
you should.
I think, I mean, the stuff. And then what I loved about it, and I'm not revealing too much about this memoir, but the fact
reveal
that
as
like,
much as you want. I
yeah,
got to entice people to buy it.
The images became the story, and I saw more and more images at the end of the book, and it was just kind of like, yeah, like it was like part of it was it's creativity, it's writing, it's art, and it's your voice, and it's real, and it was so clear the moment you open up that first page, and I was hooked for so many reasons.
Thank you.
But the biggest one I was hooked with, to go back to like, so I came from Puerto Rico in 77, 80.
Okay.
And I just remember, you know, mom would be like, go out. Right. So I grew up by DeWitt Clinton High School, like by between 250 and Bedford Park. And I'd go to the basketball playground at like, what, 9, 10, and just show up and try
figure
to
it
get
out.
a game. And, you know, and I was quiet and shy. And I forget how much basketball like made me identify with this new place called, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you, I mean, obviously the history of New York City playground, like there's so many stories. I'm like, oh my God, I knew some of them. I didn't know all of them. And you have them here. And anyone who's like a basketball nerd about the city needs to read this book.
Yeah.
But just thank you. Like, I like, thank you so much. And then to pivot, I didn't know you played professional basketball in Puerto Rico in 87. I was in Puerto Rico in 87 in the summer. Tell me about that, because that was kind of, that must have been wild. You going and playing professional basketball. Puerto
It
Rico.
absolutely was. I mean, it was a dream come true. And, you know, as I wrote about in the book, my father was invited to try out for the Los Cardenales de Rio Piedras back in 1953.
That was my team. That was
Really?
my dad, my papi, like played like semi-pro in the
Oh,
60s. He was a guard.
oh wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
good
Like,
stuff.
so there's a lot of basketball history
Yeah.
in my family, Puerto Rico, but continue.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, he didn't get to realize his dream. He had to come to New York for family responsibilities. And, you know, he didn't put that pressure on me to play professionally in Baloncesto Superior Nacional at all. But of course, he was tickled when I caught the fever to play and I actually started becoming actually decent. So, yeah, I was scouted on the playground on 99th and Amsterdam at the GOAT, where I grew up, by a former player who played for Quebradillas by the name of Ray Diaz.
Oh, yeah, I know Ray Diaz,
and
yeah.
the Piratas, you know, were a highly successful team in the 70s. So his word had weight. Arecibo signed me without even seeing me play, just based on Ray Diaz's recommendation. And I played one season there, and you know, we were the worst team in the league. I didn't get a lot of playing time. I could have committed to going back and, you know, trying to, you know, work my way up the ladder and earn more minutes. But it was like the definitive experience of my life at that point. And possibly, you know, I'm in the National Association of Broadcasters Radio Hall of Fame. You know, people consider me like an icon in sneaker culture because I'm the progenitor of journalism in that space. I mean, you know, on and on and on. I've done like phenomenal projects and I've been on TV, radio, but you know, playing pro ball in Puerto Rico, that's like the crown achievement of my life, because no one would have anticipated me being able to get there. I was 5'9" and 160 pounds, you know? So, but it took a lot of work, and being in the right place at the right time. But I always tell people, like, I wasn't lucky. I was in the right place because I forced myself to be in the right place. You know, I committed to being in the parks as much as I could on a daily basis playing, and eventually got noticed, you know? So yeah. And I was, you know, I was deserving of a contract at 20 years old. It was, you know, it's just.
It was wild, man. And the thing is, it's like you were at Wesleyan. I mean, you played at Lower Marion, like where, like I didn't know you played where Kobe played. Like there were things about you. I was like, I thought I knew about you.
Yeah. I like to say that Kobe played where I played.
But you know what I'm saying?
I
It's
was
like
12 years before him. I mean, I have some seniority.
Yeah, I'm like reading the book and I'm like, did he go to Lower Marion and pass? What the hell?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, and like again, ahead of your time as some Puerto Rican kid in New York going out to like suburban wherever it was, like I don't even know where it is in Pennsylvania. It's out there.
It's just in the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, but I think what I've seen the thread throughout the entire book, and is just how the game gave you everything, and you are just like, your gratitude in this book, like you just sit back and you're like, damn, New York Knicks, sneaker culture, DJ, traveled all over the world, like just this skinny, like, you know, kid growing up in the 60s and 70s, you know, like probably didn't, you know, it's like, that was the part that I got out of this book where it was just, you have such an accomplished career, but there's a humility in this book that is just very strong in your writing that I noticed pretty quickly. Do you want to talk about, I know it's hard to be like, talk about yourself being humble, but like, how else can you talk about humility if you can't talk about it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that works against each other. Talk about yourself being humble. But you know, I want to thank you because, you know, surprise, surprise, I'm being grateful once again. But yeah, I want to thank you because, yeah, I've been interviewed a bunch for the book, but I don't think any host yet has caught the gratitude that's expressed in the pages. And I think that might very well have to do with you being Boricua, because you know, we are raised to be conscious of our community. We're raised to be, you know, conscious of respecting one another. I mean, it's in our culture, right?
Yeah.
And that never escaped me once I became a public figure, and having people ask for my autograph, and people telling me that they basically dressed and cut their hair so that they could look just like me. I mean, when I started traveling, it was like blowing my mind, right? But I never ever lost sight of the fact that all this stuff could not have happened.
Yeah.
Right. And so people look at my book and they're like, yo, how do you remember this stuff? How do you have your photos and your clippings? And I tell people all the time, like, yo, every step of my career was unbelievable to me. So I was like, it wasn't like I was coming out of like high school and I was an All-American and everything was being given to me. Like, no, it was like everything that I got, I had to have some tactile evidence of it, and not for other people, or not because I knew it was going to wind up in Smithsonian and Cornell, and they both acquired my archives, but it's because I wanted to be able to look back at my life when I was older, and that's what I've been doing, right? And have like clear understanding of what I did. And it wasn't for my son. I didn't know I was going to have a kid. I mean, now I have a son, so cool. He can look at it. He doesn't think I'm cool, so whatever.
They come back.
He just wants to play video games.
Exactly.
But yeah, I anytime I do anything, whether it's the films that I've directed or the books that I've written or my tournament, listen, when I'm doing play-by-play, I run a tournament called FC21. It's in 30 international locations, right? Every time on the mic, whether remotely or when I was doing it in person, the first thing I say is, yo, thank you to the players, to the, supporters, the sponsors. It's like, that's how I open up.
Yeah.
It's only right.
That's the thing. It's only, and what I love about it, and I don't think we talk about that much, because I also think there's this cynicism to being like giving and humble and grateful, where it's like, what's your angle? You know what I'm saying? And I read this in the book. It's like, my angle is just, I'm living my life, living my best life. And like sitting, like when you're like, I can just imagine you like in the 90s and the aughts, and you're like, damn. Or like when you were talking about all the travel that you went to, like in Japan, and just like it's wild, right? You've gotten to be in places where, I mean, an infinitely small percentage of people have experienced it. And I think, but I also see your pride, right? And I think that was like, this is the question I have. It's like, you were ahead of the game, brother, right? And sometimes being ahead is like a double-edged sword, right? Because like you were doing things as a Puerto Rican dude when you're 20s that were just like, I mean, I instantly like identified it, and I was in Boston. So I can't even imagine like, down in the city in the 90s and the aughts. And then when you were like doing the Knicks, I mean, come on, like the Knicks, like you were like on MSG.
Yeah.
I mean, tell me about that. I know I don't have a lot of questions after this. I'm just having a conversation.
It's okay.
With you.
It's like when I was the halftime reporter for the Knicks on MSG Network, I was very aware that I was the first Latino voice in their 60-year broadcasting franchise history. Like, I didn't look at that as a small thing. I saw that as a huge step. And whether anybody recognized me for that or not, it didn't matter. It was like, okay, cool, I'm here. It's like, my father watched the Knicks. He's not around with us anymore. He passed away, decades ago. But it was like a big deal to sit. I mean, we weren't allowed to play music. We weren't allowed to talk. Like when he was watching the Knicks, it was like, yo, we had to be quiet in the house. Like, it's the Knicks, So I understand what sports does to people, and the deeper meaning that it has when when it represents a city or a town or a mentality. And, the Knicks are one of those franchises that does that, right? Because it's not just, it's one of the first in the formation of the NBA in 1946, when it wasn't even the NBA yet. It was the BAA. It becomes the NBA a few years later. Yeah, I mean, that was a big deal. That was a big deal. And so, I think I earned that as well, right? But I took that with humility. And I knew it was very possible that it was going to be a short-lived experience. And it was. They only had me for one season. There were people on the team who were like loving and adoring what I was doing, but there were people who weren't. I wasn't showing up in a suit. Depending on who I interviewed, I would break into my little street slang. I wasn't the prim and proper, and I wasn't trying to be. And they knew that when they hired me, right? So I wasn't going to compromise my creativity. But I did go to Wesleyan, right? And I'm the author, and so I knew how to speak formally. Yeah. It's just depending on who I was interviewing. If I was interviewing Dan Marino, I was going to be like, "Yo, what's up, B?" I'm interviewing Fat Joe. I'm like, yo, B was good.
Exactly.
Like, yo, thank you for being on the show. So It just, I could code switch where I needed to. I don't know if the MSG audience.
Isn't that what the city's all? That's what I always, I haven't called the city home since 1991. Like I'm up up the East Coast and, in enemy territory. And I've converted a couple of teams except for the Knicks. So like, they call me the Bronx Judas. All you got to do is Google that, and that explains why. And the reason why is because, Pedro Martinez and David Ortiz and all these like Latinos started showing up, and all the Dominicans and Puerto Ricans that have lived in this town who have been invisibilized in Boston just started coming out. And all of a sudden Fenway Park was like, let's go. This is the baseball I know. This is the Puerto Rico I know. Reminds me of like the Bronx. You know what I'm saying? So that point about like knowing where you come from and then making a life out of it, like you're living it, right? And now like, the end of your memoir is so poignant in the sense of like, now you're a dad. During the pandemic, you're like, I gotta play basketball. And now you're, like there's a great scene that just talks about finally when they put the hoops back up, the rims back up, and you take your son, and you're like, your child is like little, you're like, I'm playing. I mean, looking back, man, like looking back and ending it with this and knowing that, you never forgot where you came from, and you were kind of ahead of it. Like that being that person who was in spaces where you might not see a Puerto Rican man in spaces. Like you were in those spaces, like just how do you soak it all in? And like, what's your next chapter? It seems like you're in a really peaceful place. Or am I misreading that?
No, I am. I start my days with deep breathing exercises and affirmations and journal writing. I mean, people don't know that about me, but yeah, I live in an area that has a lot of nature, and it's quiet, and it has allowed me to shift a gear. I can shift back to that, super high level. I mean, I am still super high level, kind of overachiever, right? If you will. But ultimately, I mean, I'm proud of my book. I wrote it in 7 months. I didn't have a deal for it. I was just writing, so I wasn't writing to please a publisher or an editor. I was just writing.
You write for you.
Yeah, I was writing for myself. And I think that's why, going back to your question about the gratitude, it was like, nobody was guiding me along the way. I was guiding myself. And so that's why you hear that organic inner voice so powerfully in the memoir. And so, and I was, Akashic, picked it, Edge of Sports / Akashic, picked it up. They were blown away by it, and they really, we did a copy edit to make sure all the people mentioned were spelled properly and all that other stuff. But they really, and it was a point of contention for me. I was like, you got to let me keep my voice. Because at times I speak in Spanglish. At times I'm talking in Spanish, writing in Spanish. Sometimes I'm talking in heavy coded b-ball slang. Sometimes I'm talking in heavy coded hip hop slang. And they allowed for all of that. But, I always was intentional about writing it within a context that anybody could still understand it. It's a strong book,
Oh, it is, man. Yeah, it's a strong book because it's you,
yeah,
right? You can just tell, like, and like I said, it's like, as a fellow writer, as, a creative, like, we're artists, man. Like, people are like, oh, you're a journalist. No, I'm an artist, man. I just use these formats, like, just like you. It's like, I'm going to DJ, I'm going to sneaker, I'm going to play hoops, like, whatever. I'm going to write. And you're kind of like a Puerto Rican Renaissance man that people need to know that you were there. And I'm really just honored to have, shared a mic with you on this. And
yeah,
I love this book. This book, like, my family was like, how's the book? I'm like, it's really good. And I don't just listen, me, it's like I founded Latino Rebels. When shit was bad, I'd be like, this shit's bad. Like, this book is good. And this is a love letter to the city. It's a love letter to living in both worlds. It's a love letter to, you get into questions of identity, family. There's so much that we didn't cover, but, Bobbito García, man, thank you so much for being on the Latino Newsletter podcast, brother.
Yeah. And listen, before you leave, I want to thank you for your honest reporting. I read the newsletter. I subscribe to it. I follow on IG. There are moments in my book where I talk about my identity as a Boricua and the learning and unlearning that I've gone through. And, I feel like, you are at this point, part of the sort of universe where I absorb information from so that I could be informed, as well as being a public figure, a small voice to expose and hopefully just increase people's knowledge, whether it's through DMs and private conversations or through sharing. So continue what you're doing 1000%.
Same here, brother. I think, as we get grayer in life and you go through a lot of things, and you've gone through a lot of things, we all go through a lot of things, and you just sit back. I love what you said about, I live in a quiet place, and like, I'm the same way. It's like, I'm up in Massachusetts, and I'm like, this is my place. Like, I record right outside of my porch, and this is who I am. And we just got to keep at it. Just be real, be true, and just connect. But Bobbito García, you're just 100% class. Bobbito's book of B-ball Bong.
There it is.
And it explains it all. People have to read this book. And hopefully, next time I DM you, the Knicks don't disappoint us. So we'll take it from there.
All right, there it is.
Peace out, man.
Peace.
Have a great one, Bobbito García. Thank you for being on the Latino Newsletter.
Okay.
Cool. Wow. How's that for season 2 return? Just really thankful for Bobbito for being on. And he's like the nicest guy ever. Like, we're talking about him, but then he's like, I want to talk about you. So I want to thank him from the bottom of my heart for just being the cool class act that he is and has always been. And yeah, you got to get the book. It's a really, really good book. And quick read. I read it in the beach, like in 2 days, and you learn a lot, especially if you're a New York City playground hoops aficionado and the connection about Puerto Rico. There's so many good things, and I hope, take the time to read the book. And the Latino Newsletter is produced by Joaquin Cotler and edited by me, Julio Ricardo Varela, and Joaquin Cotler, and is also, sound design and video design and mixing also by Joaquin Cotler. And I haven't done this in a while with the credits, but, we got music from cast of characters that, we brought the theme song back. And if you like this podcast, follow us on Spotify. We're posting this up on YouTube as well and all our social media accounts, Instagram, the Latino Newsletter, TikTok, the Latino Newsletter, Blue Sky, the latinonewsletter.org. We're still on the X, Latin Newsletter. We're everywhere. And yeah, we're back with season 2. We're going to have more big news. And I should tell you, when we do season 2, the episodes will drop in audio on Thursdays. And then the video will drop on Fridays. So trying to do this a little bit differently and let us know. Let us know if the video is working and what else we can do, but all that good stuff. And yeah, we'll be back next week with another episode. The Latino Newsletter Podcast. We're back, season 2. Peace. We out of here.